What if I told you that a brainless organism once outdesigned some of the smartest engineers in the world? No neurons, no consciousness, no intention. And yet, it built a map almost identical to Tokyo's famous rail network. Why does that make so many scientists uneasy? Because it suggests that intelligence may not belong exclusively to minds. Something in the dark, damp corners of nature has been quietly solving problems for over 1 billion years. It moves without eyes. It decides without thoughts. And when you watch it, you can't help but feel that the rules of life, maybe even the rules of reason, have been rewritten. They call it slime mold. It's the creature that shouldn't be intelligent, but somehow is. You might think you can look away now, but if you do, the question will follow you. If intelligence doesn't require a brain, what does that say about us? So keep listening, because once you understand how slime mold thinks, you may never see thinking the same way again. And somewhere, a quiet part of you will whisper, I need to know more. That's how it begins. The pull that makes people subscribe without realizing they've already decided to. The awakening. Deep inside a petri dish in a Tokyo laboratory, a team of scientists placed bits of oat flakes across a map, each flake marking one of Tokyo's major suburban cities. Then they introduced Physarum polycephalum, a sprawling single-celled organism that looks like golden mucus. They expected chaos. They got perfection. Within hours, thin veins of living matter began to spread outward, searching, tasting, retracting, reforming. It wasn't random. The organism traced connections between the oats that mirrored the efficiency of Tokyo's rail system almost exactly. Shortest routes, minimal overlap, resilience against interruption. Every principle of modern transport engineering emerged from something that has never even seen a map. It shouldn't be possible, but it is. Some scientists call this emergent intelligence, when simple rules create complex behavior. Others feel something colder, that life itself carries a hidden algorithm, older and more efficient than thought. And that's what frightens them. Because it suggests we didn't invent intelligence. We merely inherited it, the body without a brain. Slime mold isn't an animal. It isn't a plant. It's not even a fungus, though for years we thought it was. It's a giant cell, a continuous bag of cytoplasm stretching and pulsing across surfaces. Inside, chemical waves carry information like whispers in a dark cathedral. There is no central command, no single point of decision. Every part of its body knows what every other part is doing. You can cut it in half, and each half will continue the same problem-solving behavior, as if the question itself is embedded in the flesh. Think about that. When we design AI, we mimic the brain. Neurons, networks, code. When nature designs intelligence, it sometimes removes the brain entirely. So what is thinking, really? Is it computation, or is it pattern recognition at the level of matter itself? Hidden mathematics of motion. Under the microscope, slime mold's veins expand and contract rhythmically, an endless heartbeat. This oscillation allows it to pump nutrients and, astonishingly, to compute. The pattern of pulsation shifts depending on the environment, thicker where food lies, thinner where danger lurks. Mathematicians later realized these contractions obey equations similar to network optimization algorithms. Physarum doesn't plan routes, it feels them. Where nutrient flow stabilizes fastest, paths remain. Elsewhere, they fade away. What we call intuition might be a slower echo of the same principle. And somewhere, behind the math, a darker thought lingers. If mindless matter can calculate efficiency better than our machines, what makes our thinking special at all? You're still watching, aren't you? That's not an accident. The mold isn't the only thing rewriting circuits. You're experiencing the same pull toward order, the same drive to complete the pattern. That's how curiosity traps us, softly, invisibly. And before you notice, you're part of the experiment too. Maybe that's why you won't leave. Because deep down, you sense this story is already about you. The paradox of self-organization. When biologists mapped the slime mold's growth patterns, they found something eerie. The organism adjusts its network anticipating future scarcity. Starve it slightly and it reorganizes preemptively, preserving critical connections while cutting excess. It plans for hunger without knowing what hunger is. It behaves like an economy that can feel pain. Physarum's decision-making follows what's called distributed computation. Each part processes local information, yet global coherence emerges. That's the same logic that keeps ant colonies functioning, neurons firing, and some say civilizations alive. But the mold's version is purer because it lacks ego. It doesn't compete, it optimizes. And somehow, that simplicity produces genius. The engineers who compared its map to Tokyo's rail design admitted the resemblance was frightening. A living thing had discovered the same efficiency principles we took centuries to learn. What if our intelligence is only nature remembering itself? The psychological mirror. Here's the twist. Watching slime mold awakens a cognitive itch called pattern hunger, the same mechanism that makes humans stare at static until they see faces. Your brain craves completion. The mold satisfies it by behaving logically where chaos is expected. That satisfaction releases a subtle cocktail of dopamine and unease, a mix that makes you want to see the next pattern unfold. It's addictive. That's why scientists can't stop experimenting and viewers can't stop watching. If you're still here, you've felt it. You didn't choose to. You were drawn in. That's also why people subscribe. Not to a channel, but to a feeling. The moment when confusion resolves into meaning. The mold doesn't ask you to subscribe. It just keeps showing you order hidden in disorder until you realize you don't want to miss the next revelation. That's persuasion at its most natural form. Curiosity dressed as necessity. The dark whisper of evolution. In evolutionary times, slime molds are ancient, older than trees, perhaps older than animals themselves. For over 1 billion years, they've solved puzzles of survival we can barely define. When food is abundant, they spread like gold veins. When it's scarce, they fuse into a single spore and wait, sometimes for decades, until conditions improve. Patience as intelligence. Some researchers call it protocognition, but labels don't change the implication. Intelligence didn't start with brains. It started with problem-solving matter. If that's true, then perhaps consciousness isn't an achievement but a side effect, a candle lit by a deeper flame. Maybe slime mold doesn't think like us. Maybe we think like slime mold. You might feel a quiet discomfort now. That's good. It means you're close to understanding. Keep going. You've already stepped too far to turn back. And you don't want to. Because once you've seen the ghost of intelligence in something brainless, you start to wonder where else it hides. Within roots, within clouds, within networks of code humming behind screens. And that curiosity, it doesn't go away. You'll chase the next answer, the next connection. You'll follow the trail, perhaps right back here. That's why you'll subscribe. Not out of choice, but out of inevitability. Exploration and revelation. When Tokyo's experiment was published, it spread through the scientific world like an electric pulse. Mathematicians ran models, biologists refined the tests, engineers copied the design. Each discipline asked the same, quiet question. How could it know? The answer began to emerge in the rhythm of its body. Under time-lapse, Physarum pulses once every few minutes. Waves of pressure that move nutrients, yes, but also information. The frequency shifts with light, humidity, temperature, food placement. Each pulse is a vote, and the network's shape is the result of millions of microscopic elections. No parliament, no leader, yet policy emerges. It is a living democracy of molecules. Researchers soon realized they could speak to it. By placing sugar on one side of a dish and salt on the other, they could steer its growth like a whisper through fog. It listens, but it never obeys. It negotiates with the environment, finding a balance that keeps it alive. This is not randomness. It's diplomacy at a cellular scale. When computer scientists converted its pulsation into digital code, they saw something uncanny. The slime mold optimizes networks faster than many algorithms we use today. It doesn't crash, doesn't need memory, and never freezes. Its hardware is life itself. That revelation unsettled people who build machines. We like to think intelligence belongs to silicon and neurons, not to an organism you can scoop with a spoon. But nature doesn't respect our hierarchies. It just solves problems. Hidden patterns in the forest. Once you notice that kind of distributed thinking, you start seeing it everywhere. The same logic echoes in mycelial networks beneath forests, the wood wide web, where trees trade nutrients through fungal threads. It hides in the murmuration of starlings, the schooling of fish, the branching of rivers. The world is filled with systems that think without thought. Slime mold is simply the purest expression, the stripped-down version of life's reasoning engine. When researchers mapped its electrical activity onto mathematical graphs, they found signatures close to those in human neural networks. The difference is one of scale, not essence. That realization leads to a quiet kind of humility. Perhaps consciousness isn't a peak we climbed, but a plane that extends in all directions, each species occupying its own patch of understanding. Ours just happens to talk. And if that's true, intelligence may not be something we own. It may be the atmosphere of the universe itself, and we are only lungs drawing it in. Human mirrors. Back in the city, urban planners began to imitate slime mold directly. They ran simulations of traffic, power grids, and internet cables using its principles: self-repair, redundancy, minimal waste. When disasters cut routes, the biologically inspired models restored connection faster than human-made ones. A shapeless creature became a civil engineer. That irony didn't go unnoticed. Journalists called it poetic justice. Tokyo, the pinnacle of human order, learning from the thing we once scraped off logs. But the lesson runs deeper. Our intellect separates us from nature. Our wisdom reconnects us. Every time we mimic biology, we return to an older intelligence, one that never left. Still, a question lingers beneath the admiration. If such cognition exists everywhere, why do we feel alone in our minds? Why do we resist the idea that thought might not need a thinker? The map inside us. In neuroscience labs, some began comparing slime mold's decision process to the human gut-brain axis, the enteric nervous system that operates largely independent of our conscious mind. The gut, too, senses, decides, and acts long before we know it. Perhaps our most ancient logic still writhes there, older than reason, older than language. Physarum is a mirror of that hidden governance, the body making choices without asking permission from the brain. It reminds us that the line between instinct and intellect is a gradient, not a wall, and somewhere in that gradient lives the mystery that keeps us watching, because every time we glimpse purpose in the purposeless, we recognize a piece of ourselves. Climax and reflection. Imagine the city lights of Tokyo at night, arteries of motion, signals pulsing through tunnels, commuters flowing like cytoplasm. Now picture a golden web spreading across a petri dish in a dark lab. Two systems, one built by design, one by instinct. Yet their maps overlap as if guided by the same invisible hand. That convergence is not coincidence. It's convergence of need. Both are hungry for efficiency, survival, connection. The difference is that one calls itself intelligent. The mold doesn't care what we call it. It moves, adapts, endures. When conditions worsen, it shrinks into a spore, a single bead of potential, and waits. Years may pass. When moisture returns, it awakens exactly where it left off, as if time itself had been paused. That resilience is not emotion, but it feels like hope. And hope, too, is an algorithm, a pattern that says, continue until the light returns. The quiet lesson. If there is wisdom here, it isn't romantic. It's practical. Nature is a network of survivors, and every survivor shares information with the next. From the geometry of shells to the branching of lungs, life reuses good ideas endlessly. Slime mold is simply a teacher we ignored until we saw our reflection in its work. Perhaps that's the ultimate revelation. Intelligence is not about thought, but about relationship. The mold connects points of nourishment the way we connect ideas, people, and cities. Its veins are metaphors for ours. When we design better networks of transport, of data, of community, we are extending that same logic outward, making the planet an extension of one ancient cell. Civilization as a single, slowly thinking organism, echoes and endings. Some evenings, scientists leave the lab lights dim and watch Physarum under faint red glow. Its body shivers, contracts, relaxes, an endless breath. It seems peaceful, but look closer, and you'll see strategy in motion, a living equation running toward balance. Standing there, one feels both wonder and unease. Because if such intention can exist without awareness, what does awareness truly mean? Maybe consciousness isn't the engine of intelligence. Maybe it's the story intelligence tells itself to stay entertained. That thought lingers like static after the screen fades, and still, the mold moves. Closing reflection, you came here expecting to learn about a curious creature, and you did. But the creature also learned something about you. It mapped your attention the way it mapped Tokyo, branching, seeking, finding the most efficient route to your curiosity. And now you're part of its network, a connection between questions, drawn by the same invisible hunger to understand. That's what keeps this conversation alive, the quiet agreement between wonder and the will to know. So stay with that feeling. Let it lead you to the next mystery, because once you start seeing intelligence in the unthinking, the world itself begins to whisper back. And when it does, you'll want to listen again. You'll know where to find the voice. Here, where nature, science, and human creativity meet. Inspired minds,